So we use our leaves to sketch a very light drawing, and I'm using a 2H pencil. I'm also using a little ceramics tool, a pointy tool, to paint or to draw in the leaves. So this is a wet in wet exercise, so we need to pre-wet our paper. I am usually using a big brush for this. You can also use a spray bottle, but what you need to do is make sure that you pre-wet this paper properly. Before you do this, I've pre-mixed 4 colors based on the leaves that I am using. It's important to have these colors ready. So the next step would be to make sure that you change your brush size. You want to use a brush that's not too large, so you are not dropping in too much paint. So all I'm doing now is dropping in these colors randomly in the background, but around the leaves, so not completely in the leaves. I want to leave the space in the leaves a little bit lighter. And the next color. So we are doing our background first before we are doing our leaves. And I'd love to do some grey in there as well. I can also use wet in wet within those drop-in sections. So I'm just going to add another color, which is a slight grey, which I also put in the background, and I'm going to add that in between. So the idea is to do as less brushing as you can. Just let the paint and the pigments flow by itself. So the less you interfere, the nicer and softer the result. So instead of just doing this once, it is actually very nice to do this twice. So we repeat the process of pre-wetting our surface, which is now perfectly dry. So we have 2 layers in our background. Nothing will happen with the previous ones, the previous layer, because it is all dry. I'm just using a few less colors, just a bit of pink here and there overlapping. So our next stage is to work wet in wet but on a dry surface. So I'm going to use my pre-mixed colors. That brush is a bit too big. And I'm going to work with paint and water. And I'm going to use a wet in wet technique, working my way from one end to the other with the different colors within that shape. I can just about see the pencil lines. And I've also created a little bit of green to add a touch of color. But I'm in control. I don't go too far, and I'll keep working with water. And once I've sort of finished one part of the leaf, I'm going to use my little scraping tool to draw in the veins. And once I've drawn in the veins, I'm using a little bit of the stronger color. Up on the tips, on the sides, and I continue. So what we're going to do now is do our third stage and overlap these leaves on top of our surface. So for our last stage I've created two colors, a nice yellow wash and a darker color.